In today's video, we are going to be discussing a less known strategy within the real estate investment world. And it's less known more for the fact that it is geared towards people that have built a large real estate portfolio, maybe inherited it over time, and are looking for ways to hand off some of the responsibilities and the things that come with real estate, but understanding their tax implications of doing that. And so let me share this presentation with you real quick. So what we're going to be discussing today are 1031 exchanges, which is not a new strategy, to be very clear. But what we're going to be looking at is how to do a 1031 exchange through what is called a Delaware statutory trust, which is a hands-off real estate strategy. So my name is Josh Ellis. I'm a financial advisor here in Merritt Island, Florida, and wanting to share with you just this strategy that I've been working with many clients here in Brevard County and actually throughout the country. And so let's get into this real quick. So disclaimers here. This is for educational purposes only. This is geared towards what are called accredited investors, which means the most common is that you have over $1 million in assets that are not tied to your primary residence. Also, there are risk factors involved. We are going to be talking about real estate, which is has the ability to lose value over time. Yeah, here's the risk factors, right? Some of the disclaimers that come with this. Prior performance doesn't mean that this is going to be future performance. All those things. So, all right, let's get into this. Real estate. If you're watching this, you have probably invested in real estate already and you understand all the many benefits that come with it, which is cash flow that comes from the rents. On top of that, you're looking at your value appreciating over time. And then also, there's a ton of tax benefits that come with real estate. And those benefits, whether you know them or not, if you're working with a CPA or tax professional, these are things that you'll need to run by them, but you have likely been getting these deductions over time through depreciation, your property taxes, mortgage interest. There's other types that are out there. But also with real estate, one of the maybe the less known because it doesn't really affect you while you're living is more of an inheritance play is what's called the step up in basis. So what step up in basis is that upon death of the owner or owners, the heirs of that real estate are going to get what is called a step up in basis. So let's look at an example of this. So a property is purchased for 400,000. When the owner dies, let's say that the value is now worth 2 million. Okay, so they bought the property for 400,000. When they pass away, it's now worth 2 million. When the heirs inherit that property, their new cost basis, so their level here of what they owe in taxes is 2 million. So what that means is that the owner has died away the taxes in this situation. So if the heirs turn around and sell that property for 2 million, they do not owe taxes on the gain. So with this, this is another one of the disclaimers. Make sure you are checking this with your tax professional as you move forward, because there could be inheritance tax. That's a whole nother situation. But just speaking on real estate, you would die away the taxes on that step up in basis. Now, what we're talking about today is, okay, if you're selling a property, you're trying to get out of real estate, maybe not out of real estate, but you're trying to unwind maybe a portfolio that have given you some headaches. You're just trying to get out of the, whether you are a property manager or you're hiring a property manager, there's still headaches that come with that. You're still getting phone calls of, hey, we need a new AC, or we don't have any renters for the next 3 months, trying to sort out some of those issues. So, what happens if you sell a property? Well, if you sell a property, you're going to pay capital gains tax on that growth. You're going to pay, if your CPA has been depreciating it, you're going to have to pay some of those tax deductions back to the IRS. There are state taxes, if that's applicable. There's a Medicare tax that most people don't know about. And you're also giving up that step up in basis because you're paying all of those taxes. So, what are ways around this? This is not new. There's what's called a 1031 exchange. This is a piece of the IRS code that allows you to defer capital gains as long as you keep it in real estate. So if you sell the property and you move it into a new property, like kind, which really just means this. This is something that can be confusing to some, but like kind doesn't mean that if it's in an apartment complex, it has to go to another apartment complex. That just means that if you're selling an investment property, it has to go into a new investment property. It excludes your primary residence. That's the main thing that you need to understand with a 1031 exchange. There are some guidelines with a 1031 exchange, and I'm going to talk about here in just a second the hands-off real estate strategy. But I think it's important to understand the guidelines of a 1031 exchange because if you've never done it before, there are some pitfalls to this. If you're not doing this properly, that it becomes a taxable event if it's not done correctly. So, step number one, and this is the thing that I harp on to any of my clients who have never done a 1031 exchange. When you're selling a property, the first step is that it must go to what's called a qualified intermediary. So, a QI. So, they're going to hold your money in escrow. If you take hold of those funds, that is a taxable event in the IRS's eyes. And now you're paying taxes and you've given up the ability to do a 1031 exchange. So must go to a QI first. The QI has the property, I'm sorry, has the money in escrow for that property sale. And then you have 45 days to identify your new property. And then 180 days from closing, so 135 days after that 45 days, you have to actually close on that new property. Also, when you get the new property, to avoid any taxable issues, the new property has to be equal to or greater in value than the old one. The cash that you receive from the sale, all of that or more has to go into the new property. And then if you have debt on the old property, the new property has to have the same amount percentage wise or more in debt. So let's say you had a property that was worth 400,000, you had an $80,000 mortgage on it, so that's a 20% debt that you have on that. The new property has to have at least 20% debt or more for this to not be a taxable event. So those are some of the guidelines, very high level on the 1031 exchange. I would encourage you, if this is something you're looking to do, is to be working with someone that knows what they're doing. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you my information to where if that's something you needed help with. But again, this is for educational purposes, not an intent to sell. I believe that was said at the beginning, but just to be clear. But here's where I want to look at what a hypothetical situation would be. And we're going to look at the example that I gave before. And if you're not a numbers person, I'm going to show you a slide where it gives the bottom line here, the numbers. But for my more analytical type, I want to make sure that I'm showing those numbers as we go. So let me get out my little laser pointer here on the slides. So you sell the property for the 2 million here, okay? But the original cost basis, what you originally purchased the property for, was this 400. You sell it for 2 million. I'm going to say in this example, there is $100,000 of debt. So not a lot of debt on the mortgage. The depreciation, your CPA has been depreciating it over all this time, and they've depreciated the whole 400,000. Your federal tax rate, this is going to be determined by what your income level is, but let's say it's 20%. It could be 15%. I'm in the great state of Florida, so there is no state tax on that. The depreciation recapture is 25%, and this Medicare tax rate is 3.8. So again, if you're not a numbers person and that you get lost in the weeds on this, I'm going to show you here bottom line. But for those of you that want to know where all these numbers are coming from, that's what we're looking at here. So if we're making a comparison, if you did a 1031 exchange, meaning you moved it into a new investment property, After you sold the property for 2 million, the mortgage balance is paid off of 100,000, you are left with 1.9 million dollars. If you do not do an exchange, you sell the property for 2 million, you pay off the mortgage, you're sitting there with 1.9 million, but after you pay all the taxes, you are left with 1.4 million. So in this scenario, a $500,000 difference where that money is going to Uncle Sam, to the IRS, paid in taxes, and you have 1.4 million to reinvest into anything that you would want. But again, if you're putting this back into real estate, you're going to have the full 1.9 million to reinvest. The whole point of this video is to say, what if you did not want to go into a new property that you have to manage or get a property management company for, that you're worrying about? Is it rented? Is the roof going to blow off? Is there a new AC unit that's needed? All the different stuff that comes with real estate. This is where the Delaware Statutory Trust comes into play. So this was created in 1988. This is not brand new. In 2004, the IRS said that this DST, the Delaware Statutory Trust, can cover 1031 exchanges. And what a DST is it allows for passive ownership, meaning I own a piece of a property in this scenario, what we're talking about today, but I don't have to manage, deal with any of that stuff. And it allows you into larger scale properties because you are owning just a portion of it, right? So, what a Delaware statutory trust allows for, and what I'm able to help with, is you can get into properties like build to rent communities, self storage, student housing. There's a lot of different options here, but this is a hands off strategy. So there's pros and cons to that, right? Like hands off means that you don't have a lot of control, but if you've got it with the right company, the right group that is investing this, it can be done very well. The investments that we're talking about here can be given monthly distributions, like your rent checks. You're getting those, but you're not worried about any of the management, any of the property issues that come with this. And it allows you to get into a lot of different sectors for diversification. So maybe you have a portfolio where you have a lot of single family homes or condos or things that you rent that way. If that's the case, then you could get out of single family. You could get into student housing. You could get into assisted living. You could get into a lot of self storage. But also, you can diversify within the country. This is all done within the U.S. So if you have all of your stuff in Florida, you could have some real estate assets in Arizona or Missouri or California, New York, whatever, but have that spread out throughout the country. And so this strategy is really meant for people that are doing a 1031 exchange and maybe have a little bit excess from that and don't have a new place to put that money. This strategy is a great one for that. Also, in what I deal with most of my clients, is they're at a place where they're trying to simplify their lives. They're trying to simplify their portfolios. So they are taking and selling bits and pieces of their portfolio. We are doing the 1031 exchange so that they can defer the taxes, eventually send this money to their family with a step up in basis, and really just simplify their lives, simplify their portfolio without all the issues that could come with actually having to manage and deal with this. And so, if you're interested in more information, here's my contact information. There's my office number and my email. I'm working with companies that have been doing billions of dollars worth of deals, have done hundreds of these transactions over time. These are vetted properties and investments. They are vetted by a broker dealer, checked out by the SEC, FINRA. These aren't just put together portfolios of me just pulling investors. These are there's a lot of due diligence that goes into this. And so if that's something you're interested in and getting help with that, again, I would love for you to reach out and help with that. That is something that I do all the time. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon.